5.7 liter Hemi V8 inside a 2008 Chrysler Aspen. So this also works for the 2008 Dodge Durangos, but specifically the ones with the 5.7 liter Hemi, because these take 16 spark plugs. So jumping right to it, you're going to need 16 spark plugs. I'm putting in all new ignition coils because mine is at 130,000 miles. You want to do those around 130 to 150. You're going to need multiple extensions. I have two small extensions, a medium around here somewhere, and then a long extension. You're going to need a socket wrench. You're going to need a 10 millimeter socket, 5/8 inch spark plug socket, anti-seize, and dielectric grease. You're also going to want a 10 millimeter crescent wrench or ratcheting wrench. One of the things I have already removed to get over to the left side is the air filter housing. So right here is going to be a clip. You just unscrew that with a flathead screwdriver, slide it right off. This hose pops right out. There's 1, 2, 3 clips around your air filter housing. That all comes right off. Right here is what the assembly will look like when it comes off of the vehicle. So I already have these first two replaced. These are really easy to get to, probably the easiest in the engine compartment. So the 10 millimeter socket is for this nut right here. There's going to be 2 of them on each ignition coil, and before you do that, you got to pop these off. It's actually very simple. Just pressure in, push them up, and then they slide right back on. So another thing to note, if you're replacing all of the ignition coils like me, they do not come with bolts. So you're going to need to keep the bolts that come out of your original, and make sure that you keep the washer as well. So that'll be very important. It kind of helps to thread the bolts through the new ignition coils before putting them in place. When putting your spark plug in the car, don't put it in dry. So that's what this anti-seize lubricant is for. So you can take a little bit of it. Actually want to go all the way around the spark plug with it. So that's what it should look like. You don't need to go crazy with it, just a little strip all the way around. Before putting your ignition coil in, get a little bit of dielectric grease. You can get it in a tube like this, or they have tiny little packets typically at the counter of any auto parts store. You're going to take just a little bit of it. I'm probably not going to do this with one hand, but you take a little bit of it and you're basically going to string it across here, kind of like a web on both sides, and then that will catch on your spark plug and will connect to the spring. So I've got 1, 2 already replaced, 3 is right back here. So I took off the millimeter nut. I already removed one of the spark plugs, this one closest to me. Now I just got to remove this rear one. This is kind of a tricky one, and the one in the back is going to be done the same way. So what you do is you take a small extension. So you take your 5/8, you drop it in, take your small extension, this guy, drop it in there as well, line it up, and it's going to just poke right there at the top. And then you take your second small extension, pop it in like so, and then you're going to be able to get your socket wrench on here to pull that guy out. And after that, it's fairly easy. You get it up, so unscrew it just a hair, and then you can pull out the entire assembly by hand. So that's the trick to getting this guy out, and the trick to getting this one back here out. Both of them take a little bit of reaching. I'm actually like putting my entire body over the engine right now. So hopefully that helps you out on there. I'll also show you a few tricks on the left side. There's 2 ways you can go about getting the bolts off right here. This one is actually removed. This was the 10 millimeter screw. I kind of go back and forth between a 10 millimeter crescent wrench slash ratcheting wrench or the ratchet itself. It just kind of depends on what is in the way to get those bolts off. Oftentimes this is actually kind of flexible, not very flexible, but kind of flexible. You can get your ratchet in underneath it, but for instances where that is too thick or you're in too cramped of a space, I just go with the 10mm socket. Now the nice things about these is once you have them loose initially, they're very easy to get off by hand. So you don't have to sit there and slowly ratchet away with any one of these tools, or slowly twist with the crescent wrench. Worm it around a little bit, get it around that pipe. Up and through. And that's what the two holes where your spark plugs are going to be. So as you're moving across the left side, first one's a little tough. Middle two are super easy. You can actually just kind of get around this pipe to get your wrench down for all that stuff. The back is super tight back there. So I'm not even sure if I can get this back. So you kind of, a little glint back there, that's my socket wrench. So you can get, depending on how thick your socket wrench is, you can get your socket and socket wrench on there and loosen it. But instead of being able to loosen it by hand, like the other ones, what I've had to do is put the socket on there itself and then reach back there and just lightly twist it with my fingers to get it off. But that's all you need to get that one loose. These are actually really easy to wiggle out. Another thing to note is the far back. Let's see if we can get a light on it. The far back ignition coil requires a little bit of work. Not the ignition coil itself, but getting the plugs in. So what I got here is just an assembly with my 5/8 inch socket and a short extension arm for my socket wrench. So you get it all the way back there in the holes, and you actually have to hand tighten it down to the point where you can't twist it anymore. Then we grab our second short socket extension. You pop that into the first one, and then you continue to hand tighten until you can't twist it anymore. I'm sorry, I wish I could really get that back there, but it's kind of difficult to get a phone down and do the work. Okay, so once that's in, you pop that first one, or you pop the second short extension out, and then there's enough space to put your socket wrench in and tighten on those last two spark plugs. And then after that, just like before getting those, I mean, if you've gotten to this point, you got those two nuts off. So again, that's kind of a tight squeeze, but you get those two back on and you're done. And then you put your airflow assembly back together and you're ready to drive your truck. So going into this job, I was kind of concerned about the screws and the tight spacing back here. But aside from it being just a little cramped and having to reach a little bit, it's a surprisingly easy job. All right, so once that's all done, reassemble your air filter housing. This is the one hose clamp you need to remove I mentioned earlier. Here's the other one. You just pop this off, and then it goes right back on. And then you're done. Turn it over, make sure everything sounds all right. I just finished mine and it's all good. So if you have any more questions about maintaining a 5.7 liter Hemi, leave your questions in the comment section, and I'll try to make a few more of these.